So, Michael, I understand that Mandela and South Africa and apartheid formed quite an important part of your work.
It did. I used it 3 times in pieces of music towards the beginning of my writing career. The first was hiding it in a guitar piece that I was just finishing off called Sonatina, and I even remember fiddling around and watching that fantastic moment where Mandela was released from prison with all the crowds and the TV cameras and lots of singing and dancing.
Right, and was that a prior decision to put the use?
Yes, it had been in there already, but it just needed a little bit of refining and touching up. I then went on to use it much more in a student orchestral piece that when I went back for further study. But the main thing was that it provided the basis and foundation of my first string quartet, which was performed, recorded, and went out under the title of Robin Island.
So when you say this is the South African national anthem.
Yes, it's got a very evocative beginning. It's one of the few national anthems that I really like, but essentially once you cut out the repetition of the notes, it's just a rising 3 notes and a falling. So you end up with a very small motif. So the quartet itself starts very quietly. If you stand on, for example, Table Mountain, Robin Island is just a tiny strip of land which appears out of the mist.
Yeah.
So so that's why at the beginning of the quartet you just hear the first violin very, very softly and quietly, still playing the 3 notes of the national anthem, but then the other instruments come in. After that, the movements are much more concerned with what happened generally over apartheid. The next movement is almost like a Keystone Cops chase, because Mandela was chased on the road between Natal and Johannesburg when he was captured. The third movement starts off very mournfully and sadly, as I tried to imagine what it would be like as a prisoner, beaten, battered, and being transported out to that most dreadful of places.
Yeah. So is there an attempt to relate the history of the events?
There most definitely is. It sort of changes a little to apartheid in general and what was happening to Mandela himself. So the movement after, for example, starts off with a rather panic-stricken pizzicato, as I tried to imagine what it was like being put in your cell for the first time. The door slams and there must be a sort of feeling of panic, and then you hear a rather sort of nervous pacing up and down in that movement. And even in the background, a very, very quiet pizzicato sort of beat, because one of the elements of frustration that they wanted to introduce to prisoners was to hear the noise of Cape Town just faintly in the background, and so you can hear that in that movement.
Yeah. It sounds as if some of this is based on your own experiences. You visited Robben Island?
Yes, my wife and young son and I visited South Africa as soon as apartheid had finished. We were told, I never really knew it was true, that we were on one of the first tourist buses to go around Soweto. But I think it was a later trip when we went to Cape Town and visited the island, stood outside the cell of Mandela. It's all quite awe-inspiring, particularly as it wasn't particularly a tourist venue at that time. It was being opened up, but not in the bigger way that it is now.
When was the premiere?
I can't remember the year exactly, but we had the premiere at St John Smith Square by the Allegri Quartet, one of the most fantastic quartets in the UK or in indeed the world. So it was very exciting for me. We had the cultural attaché of South Africa, a prisoner had written a text for the programme, and most importantly in the audience was the only white prisoner who was on trial with Nelson Mandela, a chap called Dennis Goldberg.
And wow, did he like the piece?
He did. He liked it so much actually that he rang up his friend who was the administrator of Robben Island and organised for us to have the South African premiere on the island. Sadly it didn't take place, and so one ambition yet not fulfilled.